In my almost 50 years in South Africa, I noticed that the South African natives, they knew very little or even nothing about the place and the times of this story. So I would like, for easier understanding, just to set the stage for this. The country where the tragedy happened in the Holocaust was Romania, a relatively middle-sized country in Europe, in the eastern part of Europe, next to the Black Sea. This is the Black Sea, here is Romania. About Romania, in general terms, it was a union of three Romanian principalities, Moldavia, Wallachia, and Transylvania, that formed together the present Romania. It's a beautiful country with outstanding landscapes, high mountains, snow, big rivers, amongst them the biggest river of Europe, the Danube River, crossing the country. And in the general terms, Romania was a rich country with poor people. The story that I'm going to tell you happened in the historic capital of Romania, Iași. The present capital is Bucharest, that you can see here on the map, on the eastern side of the country, the capital of Moldavia. And Iași was the cradle of Romanian civilization and culture. It was a city of mostly educated people. And many times I ask myself how a tragedy that I'll tell you could happen in such a place, with such people. Iași was the historic capital of Romania that moved to Bucharest. The language that the people speak there, Romanian, it's a Latin language. This is like an enclave of Latinity, of Latin-speaking people, like Italians, French, Spanish. And the population that was about 18 million, but it was number 3 in Europe in terms of percentage of Jews. First was Russia, Poland, and Romania. Almost 800, at the time of the Holocaust, 800,000 Jews, at a population of about 18 million. Iași was the place with the most concentration of Jewish population. Out of 100,000 at the pogrom of total population, 40,000 were Jewish. It was like mainly half Jewish and Christian. And now we can say that after the war and Holocaust and so people immigrated, the total Jewish population is about 300 people, mainly older people. Iaşi is also famous for its vineyards, an area of the finest wines of Europe. In the mid-30s and the beginning of the 40s, it was a very strong fascist movement close to Nazism in Romania. The anti-Semitism was rife. The Jews were persecuted, and came the Second World War. In '39 was in the Western Europe. The Germans invaded France and other countries. In the eastern side, the Germans declared war to Soviet Union, and Romania was an ally of the Germans. In these conditions, the anti-Semitism reached a peak to combine the Nazism with the fascism. It is well to mention that, like in our days now, and this is an example, the most virulent fascism and Nazism happened in the universities, and Iaşi was a university town where just before the Second World War started, the students, the Christian students, they beat up their colleagues to blood in the university before throwing them out. Good to remember. I would show you a few slides just to give you a feeling about this city. Iaşi was called the town of the heart, for the good heart of their people. And you'll see how good heart they had in those times. It was founded about 600 years ago by the most revered king of Romania, Stephen the Great, who, because he was very religious, was sanctified and became the saint Stephen. It's a city of big parks, public parks, with historic monuments like this here. Even trees in the park became historic monuments because under one of them, the story says that the national poet of the country, again, I don't know if anybody heard about him, Mihail Eminescu, a genius, was composing his poems under the shade of this tree that still exists there. And here is the superstar of Iaşi, the national poet, Mihail Eminescu, very much revered. It's a city of big monuments and buildings. like this cathedral. The Romanians are Christian Orthodox, and this is a Christian Orthodox cathedral of Iași. But there were about 100 shuls in Iași because of this large Jewish population. And this is the great synagogue of Iași. Doesn't look at all impressive because it was built in a time when it was a law that no synagogue should be taller than the lowest church. So what they did, they built a synagogue in a hole in the ground. City of universities. This is one of the main universities, Cuza, of colleges, of education. And here was la crème de la crème of the intellectuals of Iași, in a society, intellectual society, cultural society, called Junimea, means the youth. However, no Jews accepted. About my family and my life, I was born in the mid-30s, last century, and in a middle-class family. Middle class means merchants, lawyers, engineers, and I followed their example in my career, and winemakers because of the good vineyards around. And here you can see an example of a picture of the family in a holiday in the summer at a resort not far from Romania, from Iași. And you can see that only women, they were going on holiday. Men couldn't afford, they were working. They were bringing the women to the resort for a weekend, coming back and coming again a month later to take them. You can see me in this picture. Grandmother arms. And came the Second World War. Romania being an ally of Germans, just a week before they invaded Soviet Union, large detachments of German troops came to Iași. My parents were, of course, very worried about all this. In addition to the Romanian fascists, legionnaires, now they come Nazis. But for me, as a child of 6 at that time, the German troops brought me admiration. I looked at them, they looked like an impersonation of my tin soldiers that I played at home. They were all smart, young, very good looking in their motor cars that we never saw, modern for that time, marching in disciplined formations in the town. Everything looks to me great for a child of 6. But wasn't to be only this facade. On the 29th of June, 1941, just a week after the German-Romanian armies invaded Soviet Union, they spread rumors that the Jews are spying for the Russians. Of course, it was just a rumor. But based on this, they ordered all the Jews to present on the 29th of June, which was on Sunday, to the Central Police Station for being searched. Not all of them went early in the morning, so we were still sleeping in the house, in a flat on one of the main streets at the first floor. All of a sudden, early in the morning, we had shootings and wailings in the street. My mother immediately realized what happens. She screamed, "It is a pogrom." Now, I didn't understand the word pogrom. It didn't make part of my vocabulary at that time. So I wasn't scared of anything. But she ordered us, my father and myself, to hide under the bed of their bedroom. Well, we went there, and there she gave us a number of instructions. Don't speak, don't cough, don't sneeze, be quiet, don't move. Well, for me, this wasn't difficult. I thought that it is a game, like I was playing with all my fellow kids, hide and seek. So I went under the bed with my parents, and not long after this, big blows on the entrance door in the flat, with somebody screaming to open the door. We recognized the voice. It was the caretaker of the block of flats, called Iaşi. Iaşi is a peasant name in Romania. So this Iaşi tried to break the door didn't break. He came a few minutes later with a big axe and broke the lock and opened the door. He couldn't see us because we were hiding under the bed. After he was swearing there, he looted the flat, made a big bunch with the cover of the bed, under which we were trembling, and ran away with his loot. Not a long time later, we had some boots making a noise on the passage because the door was open, left by Iaşi. And the people speaking in a different language that I didn't understand. There were the German troops coming to round out the Jews. But they weren't mere thieves like Iaşi. They were professionals. The first thing they did, they turned the bed upside down with us facing the glorious Nazi army. I was surprised that they didn't shoot us dead because we were hiding there. But anyway, they ordered us to get into the corridor and to follow instructions to get in the street. When my mother arrived at a staircase, she lost view of me and all this drama that happened in our flat, and turned to see where I am. Now she was facing the German soldier behind her. What do you think that he did? He pushed her over the steps, and she rolled a full flight of stairs until stopped against the wall. My father, myself, instinctively ran to help her there. I still consider it was a miracle that the Germans didn't shoot us, saying that we tried to run away. Anyway, she was badly injured. She broke a knee and was full of blood. But we got up in the street with a German soldier behind us who ordered us to get hands up. This was his order, because everybody who was rounded there, it was hands up. I listened to his order, but after a while, my hands were sore. I couldn't keep them up anymore. And I let them down. Immediately he started screaming at me, up, in German, Hände up. I didn't understand what he says. And Hände hoch. And my mother said, you better raise your hands because this can shoot you. Oh, this, again, my mentality of a young boy didn't scare me because we were playing in the street. Cops and robbers. And with a pointer, we were shooting at each other, saying pak pak, and nothing happens. I thought that it's the same thing behind me. My mother immediately realized what happens, and she and my dad lifted each one of my arms, and we were working in this formation, and the soldier behind us seemed to be happy with this compromise. At the end of a long walk, he passed us to his comrades in arms, the Romanian soldiers who were making order on a long queue in front of the central police station. So after a while, the queue, which was totally disorganized, the size of a street width, reached the police station building, and we had there shootings inside the courtyard. They were introducing the people from the queue in groups inside. And every time they opened the door, the gate, we saw what happens inside. Actually, there were piles of bodies of people who were shot inside the police station courtyard. My mother immediately realized what was going on there. Next to us was a Romanian officer, a young Romanian officer, that I remember him, but not his face, that was supposed to keep order. What order can you keep in a massacre like this? But he was there. My mother kneeled in front of him, took his hand and kissed it, and asked him, "Officer, you can pass me and my husband through the gate, but keep this child out and adopt him. He will love you for the rest of his life." The officer looked at her, said, "Madam, please stop crying. I'll try to help you." And help her to get up because she was badly injured. And what he did, he kept his word. He took her hand, she took mine, I took my dad's hand, and in this formation, we walked against the stream of the people in the queue. What he did, it was an extraordinary, courageous act, because he could have been asked by one of his comrades or superiors, what is he doing with these 3 Jews after him? Could have been shot on spot, and it happened to some others. So he risked his life totally for some people he didn't know at all, and we didn't know him, we never knew him. He took us to the end of the queue, where he left us, he disappeared. I thought that this was an act of God, but an act of God happened immediately afterwards. He tried to extend our life, bringing us there. But came an order from the central government, from Bucharest, to stop the massacre. They said it was enough. Eventually, 13,000 people were killed, massacred in that Sunday, and a few days later, 13,000 people. They gave an order that women and children can go home, but men to be retained there. What happened to the men? Thousands of men were stopped there. They had the most terrible death one can imagine. They were taken to the railway station, where they were embarked in cattle wagons, sealed on all the openings, locked in the heat, the terrible heat of summer of Romania, and taken for days around the country, dying of suffocation, of thirst, of loss of mind. Thousands of people. We returned, my mother and I, not to our flat, because we were scared of Enaki. With his axe, he can split our head. So we went to my grandmother's house and stayed there for a long time. My father came, fortunately, was enough room in the death trains, and those who weren't taken there were let to go home. The rest of the Holocaust, 3.5 years, compared with what happened in that Sunday, was nothing. We were already shocked from what we saw in that Sunday. So I may show you a few pictures. These are the main characters of my story at that time: my mother, my father, and moi, age 6. And look what happened on the streets of Iași, where people with hands up in convoys, with army taking them to the execution places. And this was a picture taken with a committee of the Jewish community, who were tortured to accept that they spied against Romania. And the most horrific pictures of a young family with a little girl there, killed in the streets. That's what had happened in that Sunday. People who survived that Sunday, years after years, when they were meeting and talking about their memories, they didn't call this a pogrom. For them, the word pogrom, it was something strange, foreign. It's not a Romanian word, but anyway. They called it that Sunday. This expression, that Sunday, was like a password between people who survived. This was the way they identified themselves, that they were survivors. So this was the reason that I entitled my presentation, That Sunday, for its significance. "70 years later, after that Sunday, it was the 70th commemoration of. It was important, this 70th commemoration, 2011, because before them, Romania didn't admit that it was a Holocaust in Romania. They simply ignored this. No, everybody was keeping quiet. It was like a secret of Polichinelle that everybody knew about, but nobody was talking about. But with the 70th commemoration was after Romania admitted officially that it was Holocaust in Romania. This was at the initiative of Elie Wiesel, himself a Romanian who was sent to Auschwitz. And for this, it was an official commemoration. We were taken by bus to various sites with mass graves of the death trains. Mass graves, thousands of people, mass graves. And of course, it was an official ceremony with a guard of honor of Romanian army, with representatives of various countries, ambassadors from Germany, United States, with fanfare, military honors, with wreaths of flowers from the embassies, German embassy, American embassy, Israel. Many years later, after all this, I saw this famous, or maybe notorious picture of a child in Warsaw, hands up, with a German soldier with a machine gun behind him. And I identified myself with him. I was even almost half his age. But for me, it shows that to some other children happened the same thing. More than this, a well-renowned painter, Samuel Bach, he described what happened to him. in Vilna. Also a child with hands up. So what I can say is that we form a kind of a brotherhood, the three of us, but of course it should have been many, many more. Two years ago, I visited Iași. I visited Iași a number of times, but this happened 2 years ago. And I was invited by the local Jewish community to give a presentation like this about my memories of that Sunday. Of course, I accepted. It took place in a small synagogue. Now there are only 2 synagogues in Iași, but the population, Jewish population is so small. And I was surprised about the audience, which was a class of high school students, all Christian, with their teachers, many non-Jewish residents of Iași, and some Jewish people still there. But none of them was a survivor, a living survivor of that Sunday. I was the only one survivor. And I had that, it was also in Iași, a lady who was a survivor but was bedridden and couldn't come. When I gave a similar presentation like this, of course, without the introduction of Romania, everybody was surprised. It was, of course, a second and a third generation after me, because nobody was talking about. They didn't know what happened on their streets in that Sunday. They didn't know that it was that Sunday. And at the end, there were a number of people who were crying, but some of them raised and asked the organizers to go to the mayor of Iași and ask him for the fact that I opened their eyes of what happened in their town, on their streets where they walking every day. They didn't know. They came to face history of their parents, grandparents, to confer me the honorary citizenship of the town, of the same town where I was on the edge of this. I didn't pay much attention to this. I returned to Johannesburg, and a week later, I received an email that their request was submitted to the city council and approved in unanimity. And I have to come back to receive the title of honorary citizen. This is not a simple trip from here to there. You fly and change flights from Johannesburg to Iași. It takes about 24 hours. Anyway, I considered that it was, and I went back. This function was organized in the same date of 29 of June 2022, actually 28, and I'll explain to you that was the reason. It's the 82 commemoration of that Sunday. The commemoration took place at the cemetery, the mass graves, and afterwards I was taken to a television interview of Iaşi television channel. It was taking place in one of the most relevant places of that Sunday, that interview. What you see here was one of the torture chambers of the Central Police Station, where thousands of people were massacred. And in this room, they were torturing them. The building was converted into a pogrom museum. I remember that I was asked a question by the interviewer after I gave my story. Are you prepared to forgive what had happened? It was the first time that I faced this sort of question. My answer was, it's not for me to forgive, because there are people who suffer much more than I suffered. I was just a witness. And the fact that I survived is not an act of heroism. The hero was that officer who saved our lives. I think that the only one who may decide about forgiveness or no forgiveness would be God. The ceremony of awarding that title took place in one of the most prestigious places in Iaşi. This is the National Theater and Opera House in Iaşi. An extremely elegant architectural building, one of the most beautiful in Europe. And you can see the interior, the exterior, of course, but the interior with the stage and with the balconies, with the boxes. And the theater was full to capacity with my fellow citizen of Iaşi people. The mayor, here in the middle with the flag, conferred me the diploma, and it was a commemoration concert which started. I was surprised. I was invited to the royal box of the theater. I never dreamed about such a thing. It started with a new rendition of a tikva and the Romanian anthem. The Israeli ambassador also received honorary citizenship. Now, after the mayor gave me the citizenship, the honorary citizenship certificates, and said very nice words, I turned towards the public. What do you think that I felt being on the main stage of the city in front of a multitude of people, but of course of other generations? I remember the little boy, being the little boy marched by the German soldier on the back. And I told them what I was thinking about in those moments. The only thing that I would like to happen, that this tragedy, that Sunday, not to be repeated. Not a sense of revenge, because these were different generations, and I never blamed the children for the sins of their fathers. Here, in full regalia, and this is what happened on that stage. The golden medal of honorary citizenship. Thank you. I would like to say a few words. This is a tribute to my good friend, Simi Lager, in a loving memory for him. All his qualities of this friend can be encapsulated in one Yiddish word. He was a mensch. And thank you, Simi's wife and daughter, being here and attending this presentation. And as a token of memory, to confer to Rebecca and Viv. To keep his memory forever in their family. Thank you. No. Can you come back? It's not finished. No. In these traumatic times that we are living now, in this world, in many places, but particularly in Israel, I think that this presentation, this testimony, it's just a reminder of what happened in the past and my my feeling, I don't know what happened here. My message, it's here. My message is never again. Never, ever again. Thank you.
You take questions if people have any questions for you.
Yeah, but can you assist me? May I not understand exactly?
Absolutely. So we'll stay here together then. Friends, Lionel is willing to take questions. Graham will bring a roving mic. Is there anyone who would like to ask a question?
Thank you so much for that very, very profound and moving presentation. What I wanted to ask is, did you ever hear about the young soldier who didn't send you and the mother and your father to the top of the queue? Did you ever hear about him?
Very soft for me.
What happened to him?
Did you ever hear what happened to that young soldier who helped you and your parents?
Never. Probably he was taken to the front line in those times. And the Romanian army went up to Stalingrad, if you know what happened at Stalingrad. And at least 250,000 Romanians perished there. So never. He was a total unknown to us. We were totally unknown to him. He saved our lives. And I asked many people how they explain such an act of courage. I went even to the Archbishop of Moldavia, Iaşi, to ask him this question. To ask him if this is an act of God. And he said, possibly it's an act of God. But this is an act of morality. And I asked him another question. Because at the ceremony, 70th ceremony, he made a speech, this Archbishop. How do you think that he started his speech about the pogrom? He started with Psalm 133. I knew that psalm, but not in Romanian, in English and in Hebrew. Ma tovu manayim, ahim shevet gam yachad. So he called the Jews and the Christians, Iaşi, brothers. Brothers. Then I asked him a question. Why your predecessor in Iaşi didn't come out in the streets of the massacre to stop it? Killing brothers. And you know what was his answer? The circumstances were different. Now, I ask him again, is morality absolute or relative to the circumstances. Because what the young officer did in the worst circumstances, risking his life. And he didn't answer. Maybe it's an open question that will have once a debate if morality is absolute or related to circumstances.
Are there any more questions for Lyonell?
How's it, Lyonell? Thank you so much. Lyonell, I'd like to ask you, and what happened to the rest of your family? I know in terms of your mom and your dad, what happened to your parents, and what happened to, did you have any other family living in Iași or anywhere else in Romania?
What happened to your family, to your parents? And did you have any other family members who were in Romania at that time?
Well, I had two uncles who were taken in the death trains. And one of them did the supreme sacrifice to save the life of the other. He donated him in that sealed wagon the most precious gift of life, his urine, and saved his life. The other one died. There were many victims in the family. My great-grandmother was bedridden and couldn't go to the search at the police station, and the Nazis, Romanian Nazis, came into the house and smashed her head. Anyway, these are memories from the past. But there were so many victims that each one is a story.
I think we should draw to a close now, so, all right. Peter and then Sam, and then I think we should draw to a close. So Peter first.
Thank you, Lyonell, for a very profound talk. Thank you. How did you feel about being offered honorary citizenship of a town that had completely forsaken you?
How did you feel, Lyonell, about being offered the honorary citizenship of a town that had abandoned you and your family?
I always judged people on their own merits. I never put blame on a mass, because you can, even if there are a few who are right people, you're not supposed to mix them with those who are on the wrong side. So I don't think that I felt any animosity to the large public that came to the Opera House for this ceremony. On the contrary, I appreciated this.
Sam, please.
There's a question from Zoom, which is, how did Lyonell first come to South Africa?
How did you first come to be here in South Africa, Lyonell?
Oh,
That's another whole adventure
this
and
is
exciting story.
it's a different story, total different. I didn't come from that Sunday here, but I'm a civil engineer, and I was always looking for challenges, projects, big projects. And I found the opportunity here in South Africa almost 50 years ago, when South Africa was still developing very much. This is in a few words.
So, thank you everybody for joining us this afternoon. I just want to say, Lyonell, thank you for sharing this deeply personal set of memories. Memories with the sharpness of a child's perception, but also memories filtered through the process of maturing and becoming an adult. It's a story that's beautiful and terrible and terrifying and wonderful. It's a story, I think, about the horrors people can commit and about their extraordinary selflessness and generosity. And most of all, I think it's a story about the person you are, a man who has come through those experiences with so much wisdom and generosity of spirit and compassion. That is your friends. We're very glad to have you here with us today. And I'm just going to say a few quick words of thanks, and then Carolyn will come up and say a closing word. But I'd like to thank everybody who made this afternoon possible. Most of all you, Lyonell, again, for coming to share this with us. I'd like to thank Carolyn for helping me to hatch this idea and working with me on organizing this event. I'd like to thank Graham for his support and his absolutely magnificent poster, which we'll add to the Beit Emanuel collection. And of course, very warm words of thanks to Russell, who is always here to help and support us, whatever we undertake to do, and to the tech team of Sam and Solomon. Thank you also, both of you, for being here. So, Lyonell, we wish you well. Thank you again for bearing witness. I think your story is so powerful, it brings to mind Virgil's words, and you come from a Latin culture. Sunt lacrimae rerum, things are full of tears. Thank you again, and Carolyn, if you'll come and help us end off
Hello. Lyonell, I just want to say thank you so much. I've known Lyonell for a while, and it was so beautiful. One day I was at Shul, and I saw his name on Zoom, and his face wasn't there, and then I saw his face, and I contacted Lyonell, and I just made a video about Yom HaShoah, and I sent it to Lyonell, and he invited me to his house, so thank you so much. And I've been to his house more than once, so thank you again. But Lyonell, I want to say, as me, almost as, I'm sorry, as a representative of a younger generation, thank you so much, because I had grandparents who I loved very, very deeply, and they came from Lithuania. And what you don't know, Iaşi Pogrom happened on the 29th of June. The Nazis entered Lithuania on the 22nd of June. And half my grandparents' family was annihilated, shot in the killing fields. One brother survived, and he survived Dachau. So I always knew about the Holocaust. So I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart for speaking, because so many people could not speak. So many people never knew what happened to their families. So tata rapa and all the best.
Thank you very much, Carol. Very kind of you.